Welcome to the Lakehouse Optimizer for Databricks. Here we are on the overview page, which is essentially our starting point for our optimization journey. Organizations will use this as their admin console to properly steward their Databricks environment from all levels of the Databricks hierarchy. Executives who own a Databricks deployment struggle to make the best decisions to enable the business because of inherent complexities of the platform. They'll find that they have essentially zero visibility to tie in both Databricks and the cloud spend, as well as zero visibility into understanding who is using what, where the issues are, and what to do about it at an actionable level, which results in zero predictability, leading to decision paralysis, and leaving not only money on the table, but leaving business progress on the table as they cannot onboard additional use cases. It's the best way to drive more value from your Databricks investment, and so here we are going to start with just that. We have an organization that is already consuming their monthly commitment that you see there in the pink line, but they are trending underneath their budget. However, we can see from our intelligent forecasting feature that if the user does not take into account the spend trends that are occurring without optimization, they will end up exceeding their monthly budget levels. However, if they're able to take into account the optimization recommendations that are going to come out of the platform, then they can identify how they can be very prescriptive in their actions to reduce their spend, get the environment back under control, and ensure that they have enough capacity to onboard additional workloads to the platform and use it to the best of their ability. We're starting here and seeing the total cost of ownership across the Databricks platform, both for the cloud provider. In this case, in this example, we are highlighting Azure. We also have an AWS version as well. They can filter this down to see the Azure spend with specific monthly budget and monthly commit numbers, as well as the Databricks spend as well. Additionally, as it relates to our Executive Insight Engine, one of the new key features that have been released as part of this launch, we have the ability to map the organization both on the cloud provider side as well as on Databricks, importing tags from both sides of the cloud and providing a nice handy interface to be able to help understand where the business is consuming what, where the unhealthy spend is, and exactly what to be able to do about that as well. Here we're highlighting particular business units that have been tagged. This is very beneficial for shared service models where you need to have a chargeback model that allows you to identify at a very granular level who is actually using what in the organization, but it also can be used to serve up specific business processes or workloads or individual use cases, and even particularly IT-oriented projects. However the organization wants to map and track this information, you have the ability to do so with the Lakehouse Optimizer. Drilling in here within supply chain, you have a similar view as we were looking at before. We can identify what the total spend is for this particular business segment, month-over-month change, individual budgets for this part of the business, and similarly speaking, healthy versus unhealthy spend, broken down in some key areas that allow you to take action, and the intelligent forecasting that is going to allow you to identify how things will continue to go on as they are unchecked, and what your future can look like when you follow the prescriptive optimization recommendations that come out of the platform. On the right-hand side here, we're also breaking down the key features that are being leveraged, from workflows, all-purpose clusters, Delta Live tables, pools, and SQL warehouses. Each one of these underlying features have a great deal of granular telemetry that we are collecting in near real time, which allows you to make optimization decisions at runtime as users are actually engaged with leveraging the platform, but then also to be able to see it all up in aggregate to help facilitate the planning and budgeting type requirements that the business also needs to be able to fulfill. Over here, you can see that we have a number of incidents that have been listed here on our set of all-purpose clusters. We'll also show what the dollar amount is of the consumption of those resources and the number of resources as a whole. Drilling into the individual recommendations, these are served up by our intelligent recommendations engine. We'll provide very specific estimated cost savings and very prescriptive recommendations to be able to take action, identifying in this case individual clusters within particular workspaces, identifying in this example some exact idle numbers. And if you drill in, it will give you some more information about the shutdown periods and some other recommendations that can actually help you fulfill those estimated savings. We have another area that provides some additional granularity into that, and we'll drill into that here in just a moment. Center of Excellence leaders will greatly appreciate their ability to understand how each one of the features and components of the platform are being rolled out and being adopted by different segments within the organization. That way you can quickly identify if there are areas, for instance, SQL warehouses, if they expected more usage or more consumption in that area, you can go to the supply chain group and then begin to have a conversation about up-leveling and enabling them to be able to leverage the platform more effectively, catch up in their requirement for onboarding additional use cases, and ensure that they are using it properly and appropriately, ensuring that there are a minimum number of incidents and a minimum number of recommendations in order to make improvement. I'm going to go back up a level, and we're going to drill into the optimization health scores here as we identify what we are describing as healthy spend, as well as unhealthy spend. In this particular environment, we have a lot of healthy spend, which is great. Organizations that are already en route to providing an optimized environment can congratulate themselves for doing a good job already, but there's still more work to be done. We have 3 key areas for our optimization pathways that we like to highlight. We describe them as efficiency, performance, and orchestration. Each one are going to have very distinct actions and recommendations that are driven from the lowest levels of granularity within the platform, and then aggregated up here so that you can actually summarize and understand what you need to be doing in mass. Taking a look at our efficiency score, for example, this is where you start to find some very specific recommendations to be able to take those unhealthy spend figures, minimize them, and take complete control over the environment. Here you can see, for example, one of our key areas, we have a particular pool that is composed of a number of idle VMs. We've identified the VM type, the number of idle VMs, and a specific recommendation to change the maximum VM count to save, in this case, to over $2,000. There are a number of other recommendations that are also generated as we look at the breakdown of unhealthy spend. We'll look at over-provisioned workloads, idle cluster instances, and in the example I just provided, idle VMs and pools as well. By providing a tally of the number of workloads, clusters, and VMs respectively, you can get a better idea of the size of the problem, and then by drilling in this view workloads or view clusters or view pools area, the data practitioners can start to take very specific action filtered down to the context that they need to be able to not only understand the summary of the recommendation that we've provided, but also validate and substantiate it against their context or additional intelligence that come outside of the platform for what the business needs and whether or not these recommendations are going to fulfill those requirements. It allows them to essentially personalize this information to the business and then take action where appropriate, again, to minimize the level of unhealthy spend. I'm going to go back out one more level too and talk about their orchestration recommendations a little bit as well. This is a very novel way to be able to look at health of a Databricks environment. Essentially what we're doing is we're looking at the startup versus the runtime of workloads. And although you don't necessarily pay a lot for the startup time, there are a lot of additional benefits to ensuring that your orchestration is very healthy. In this case, we'll identify very specific workloads that are grouped within segments that you can actually take action upon. Up here in that first recommendation, we found workload group A has 309 of a very particular instance type. If you group these workloads and set up dependent workflows, you can save over 25 hours of time and $700. There are additional workloads that we can group together to be able to minimize the amount of startup time. What we have found out is that on the cloud provider side, you're essentially paying for a few minutes every time one of these workloads gets fired up. On the Databricks side, not all of that startup time is being consumed. It's about a minute for each. But as you look at this across the entire enterprise, there becomes a lot of savings that can come to bear just by grouping workloads appropriately and ensuring that we minimize that amount of startup time. The net result is also being able to pull the SLA for workloads forward. So if you have regular reporting requirements or data that needs to be delivered for a customer or another part of the organization, you have the ability to run that more frequently, deliver that data earlier because we've minimized the amount of startup time that has occurred just by grouping and providing proper orchestration patterns. Rolling back up to the top, I just wanted to quickly summarize some of the key capabilities here as it again relates to our intelligent forecasting feature, allowing you to identify where the best level of commitment is, how you are trending against your budget, and being able to ensure that you can get the best value and the most appropriate level of discount for the type of spend and consumption that you have. Organizations that have a high level of confidence in the health of their environment, as we look at the optimization health area, which is part of the Executive Insights engine, will have a great deal of confidence to ensure that they are committing at the right tier for the right amount of spend and the right amount of value that is being able to be provided to the organization. And then lastly, of course, we discussed our intelligent recommendations layered underneath each one of these areas. What I'm not showing you is the opportunity to drill into the most granular levels of telemetry. We have another session which we're going to describe things like pool contention reporting, auto-scaling insights, even identifying the individual auto-scaling segments of time and the things that trigger that and the kind of actions that you can take there, among another set of vastly productive recommendations to be able to help both the executives, directors, and data practitioners alike come together and ensure that the Databricks environment is as optimized as possible and best set up for the organization to have the most impact through the workloads that are being run. Thank you very much.